Greetings, Your Majesties. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for always returning. Trust you and yours are well and you're loving yourself. And others, like always, many thanks to all of you for the support you give to the channel. Thank you so much to our channel members, to our anonymous supporters, to all of you, my esteemed subscribers. You're loved, celebrated, and appreciated. The concept of the Madonna and child is the concept of the African people. The concept of the Madonna and child is the African concept. Jesus was born in a cave in Ethiopia. Not as Jesus anyway. That melanated man that walked the length and breadth, I keep telling you, it is proven that a man existed that walked the length and breadth of the world, of the continent, and performed some miracles that people experienced. And he could do that because he studied the ancient texts and teachings and ascended.
If you have never researched outside the realm of the Bible, then you will have certain fears, superstitions, and prejudices based on a mixture of truth and a distortion of the truth. If your research has only been in the Bible and modern patriarchal theology books, along with colonized history books, then your search for spirit and truth will often be hidden in plain sight. So join me as we decode the names, artifacts, and folklore from ancient Latin, African, and indigenous cultures to see how African matriarchal principles were transformed into a new thing and rebranded to the same people that originated the text. First off, allow me to note that you will hear me use the term virgin, but historically speaking, virgin really means a young woman, not literally a physically untouched woman. I'd also like to note, never mind about the racial background or ethnic background too much. This video really isn't about that particular topic of it, even though it will inevitably show up in the artifacts. And as always, it is never my intention to offend, but to inform. Enjoy. In the beginning was the Word. So let us examine the following words and etymology to expand your understanding. In Spanish, mar means the sea or the ocean. The older original Latin term for mar is maris or maris. Some say maris. Now that we have examined the word mar, let's look at the word Mary. The word Mary is related to that old Latin derivative term known as maris or maris. Also related to the Latin term maris and mar is the Spanish name for Mary known as Maria. Maria. Mar. Maria. Also related to the Latin term mar and maris is the English word marine. Marine. Be patient with me here. I'm going somewhere with this information. This is not an elementary school lesson. Did you know that the Hebrew version of the name Mary and Maria is Miriam? At this time, I would like for you to focus on the Miri aspect of Miriam. In Igbo, Nigerian culture, which carries a lot of the ancient Hebrew ways, has a term for water known as miri or miri. The Igbo term for mermaid or mami water spirits would be nimiri. If you've ever heard the Bible story about the baby Moses being saved from the water by the princess, her name is Miriam. In fact, if you look at the name Moses, also known as Musa, it means to be drawn out of water and saved from drowning in water, in both Hebrew and Arabic. The reference to the Egyptian queen being known as Miriam is related to the ancient female mami water goddess Isis, known as Aset, the mother of the Emiri spirits. So, Moses, Miriam, and Jesus' mother Mary is related to one queen of the Mamiwata kingdom known as Isis or Set. Isis, Isi, Imiri. When Isis' husband, known as Asar or Osiris, was murdered by his brother, his body was cut into pieces. But Isis was able to conceive from the dismembered private areas of her husband, reassembling the piece to create a virgin conception, conceiving her son Haru, known as Horus, who would redeem and avenge the betrayal of his father, kind of like Simba did to avenge his father Mufasa from Scar. Just as Mary gave birth to a son that would redeem, even earlier, Isis also gave birth to a son that was considered a redeemer. In modern times and in certain cultures, Isis is also known as Yemoja, or the queen of the Mamiwata pantheon, who also has a close bond with her son. The official initiation into Christianity, besides accepting Christ, is baptism, which involves water. Just as Moses was drawn out of water and saved, the act of baptism is supposed to draw a person out of the water and supposedly save them, which is why water is so important to Christianity. An old name for the Virgin Mary was Stella, which means star, and Maris, which of course we already discussed, means the sea. But did you know that the same cultures that edited the Bible went as far as actually depicting the Virgin Mary as a mermaid, holding the staff of Neptune, aka Poseidon, who is known as Olokun, the Orisha of the deep ocean in Yoruba cosmology. In Greece, modern Greece that is, the Virgin Mary is known as the Panagia Gorgona, patroness of fishermen. And wasn't Jesus related to fishing and carpentry? If you ever visit Syros, Greece, there sits the Panagia Gorgona, the Mamiwata, holding her child. In African and indigenous cosmology, Mamiwata is a symbol of motherhood, seduction, and wealth. And her familiar symbol is the serpent. Did you know that even the Virgin Mary has snakes as her familiars? I'll bet you didn't know that. In this Greek article, it is discussed about the snakes of Virgin Mary that visit in Kephallonia, Greece. In the following article, it says, according to history, the snakes of the Virgin Mary have failed to appear twice. The first time in 1940, shortly before the outbreak of World War II, and the second time in August 1953, when Kephallonia suffered a tremendously destructive earthquake. Thus, it is believed to be ominous if the snakes do not appear. Which means, at that church in Greece, it is ill fortune if the snakes do not show up, but it is blessings and good forebodings if the snakes do show up. So the Greeks await the arrival of Mary's snakes as a sign of good fortune and consider it bad if the snakes don't appear at the church that following year. The demonization of Mamiwata and reducing her goddesshood to a mere mortal human virgin has occurred due to the fall of matriarchy and the rise of patriarchy, usurping the authority of motherhood and stealing her rights, which has caused a many a generational curse to certain family lineages and definitely social curses, which you can see being played out today. The ancient black doves, known as the Sibyl prophetesses, prophesied that these things would occur that we are seeing today. In the modern world, Mamiwata has to hide behind the veil as the Virgin Mary, but that doesn't change who she really is. Everything demonized is not evil. Even the Pope's attire is related to her queendom. If the marine kingdom is so evil, then why is water used for baptism? And why is the symbols in Christianity related to fish and the sacred space of womanhood known as the Vesica Pisces? Have you ever wondered what the term born again means? Well, in early Christian rites, this is what an early baptism and rebirth would look like, passing through the birth canal of the Vesica Pisces fish. A very matriarchal ritual. Now, let's discuss Akhet, which relates to the sun on the horizon. Usually, the horizon is considered to be mountains, the sun over the mountains, but it is also related to the sun being cast over the water. So if you ever wondered how Jesus walked on water, you're looking at it right now on this picture. This is the sun, the S-O-N, literally walking on his mother, the water. Akhet is also related to the Sphinx. But did you know that the Sphinx was always considered to be a woman, not a male creature, and a creature of wisdom? She was known as Horem Akhet. The Horem part is related to the male deity Horus, known as Haru, but the Akhet part is related to the watery and mountainous horizons. But don't always take the mountainous parts literally. In the Canaanite pantheon, Akhet is the female aspect of El, known as El Shaddai. El Shaddai, though considered to be a god of the mountain, the sufficient god that has more than enough, it actually alludes to a matriarchal goddess known as the breasted one. So the mountains would be related to her breast. The word shad itself in Hebrew is breast. By the way, did you notice the vesica Pisces drawing around the Sphinx's head? By the way, I forgot to mention that the goddess Ishtar sits on top of a lion, just like the Sphinx, and she is also an aspect of Isis Mamiwata energy. Same goddess, different culture. In Yoruba land, the god of lightning and thunder, named Shango, is the son of Yemoja, the mother of the water, and his priestesses salute him by holding their breasts, just like the female statue of El Shaddai. In West African cosmology, Mamiwata spirits are known as Aka Ete. In the Cuban Arara tradition, Yemaya, mother of the water, aka Yemoja, has a path called Afrekete, from the word Aka Ete. All of this is stemming back to the original word, Akhet.
Majesties, like, I don't just understand what is happening. There have been a lot of mess-up. They've messed up everything. Everything has been messed up. I want us to listen to Dr. Ben. I love his teachings. I don't know if you love his teachings like me, but there's a lot of things that I have been able to unlock through Dr. Ben's teaching. All right, so let's listen to Dr. Ben and we take it up from there.
Most black people in Birmingham, Alabama, like in Harlem, New York, are Christians, and they go to in a black community, a black minister, a black congregation, but with a white Jesus, because they didn't know that Jesus, up until Pope Julius II, had the first black Jesus painted. He had Michelangelo to do it, but up until that time, the world worshipped the Black Madonna and Child. The present Pope is going back to Poland to worship at the statue of the Black Madonna and Child. That's in the New York Times. But what the Times says the next day, don't worry about the Black Madonna and the Child. She was originally white, but there was a storm in the 16th century, passed by and turned it black. But the same storm must have gone to Spain, and then it went to Ethiopia, and it went to the Soviet Union and turned all the Black Madonnas black. It was a hell of a storm.
Well, okay, let's get together here. I mean, we're jumping around, and I think we're going to have a beautiful, interesting hour. Okay, because of this subject, I was going to get to this later, but since you opened it, let's deal with it. Okay, you're in the Bible Belt, gentlemen.
I heard so.
You heard so. And I must tell our audience, we had dinner together earlier, and we got into this a little bit. So you're going to hear some interesting things. Because you guys are taking issue with a lot of what we grew up with in the Bible as fact. And you're telling me that's not so. You got to
picture that. I brought it right here.
What is it?
Before I show you the picture you wanted to see. This is Pope Pius XII. In his private chapel, praying to the Black Madonna and Child, and all the popes of Rome, in their private, just from the church, the Roman Catholic Church itself. I just got rid of the copy of the history of the Black Madonna last night. I brought one copy It's published by the Roman Catholic order of nuns called the Daughters of St. Paul. And they said that the picture of the Black Madonna child in Poland is reputed to have been painted by St. Luke. Now, St. Luke is said to have been one of Jesus' disciples. He ought to know what Jesus had looked like. So if he painted a black woman and child, who am I to say that he wasn't? Besides that, however, in Anacalypsis...
So now you guys are saying Jesus was black?
We're not saying it. It's what has been written
up
until the Nicene Conference of Bishops in 325, when Rome, under the order of Constantine, the Roman emperor, ordered the 219 bishops at Nicaea, and they took away Christianity from the Africans. Just remember that before they said Jesus was born in a manger in Bethlehem, they said he was born in a cave in Ethiopia. It was at the Nicene Conference that changed that. Let's go further. Wait a minute, let me be sure I'm following you now. You're saying that the birth of Christ as we know it is not accurate. It's a farce. It was only... You realize what you're saying? A farce, a lie. You know what a lie is?
A lie is a lie.
The person who wrote that at the Nicene Conference of Bishops in 325 A.D., Constantine, the Roman emperor, ordered a conference be held because Rome wanted to take over Christianity from the people who started it. Christianity was started with Pantheus and Boetius in a place called Alexandria in Egypt. And Egypt is in Africa. I saw it up to January the 9th, it was there.
You talked about that a little bit last night in your lecture. There was a lecture last night, Dr. Simmons, here on campus. You talked about the separation of people don't want us to see Egypt as part of Africa. You talked about the historical thing about blacks being in Egypt as well.
Yes, what I did last night...
I don't want to get away from the other point.
No,
I just triggers things in my mind. Let's deal with it.
What happened is that I dealt last night with the fact that Herodotus, the institutions of higher learning, white institutions, considered the father of history. He himself, when he visited Egypt around 450 BC, almost half a thousand years before Christ, said that the Ethiopians, the Egyptians, the people of cultures, which is part of present-day Turkey, were people of black skin and woolly hair. All right? And so I just want you to understand that the Egyptians we now see are conquerors, just like people who came here and took this land from the Indians, so that they're not indigenous to Africa, those who now rule Egypt. And Egypt is just as much a part of Africa as Birmingham or Alabama is part of the so-called United States.
Let me just be clear on this. So what you're saying to me now is that the people that we see, Sadat and all those guys, are not true Egyptians?
No. The fact that Sadat's mother was a Sudanese, Nasser's mother was a Sudanese, but their fathers were Arab conquerors. The one that was the African was Mohammed Naguib, the first president of Egypt, the one that overthrew Farouk. But 1 year after that, since he was looking for a hookup with the other Nile Valley countries as it used to be in antiquity, he was removed by the Arab conquerors. The Arabs didn't come to Egypt until 640. The first non-African people came to Egypt, otherwise called the Hyksos, in 1675 BC. The Africans there were already in the 13th dynasty period. They had built every pyramid you saw there before. They had done the S-turn in the Nile. They built every one of the major temples that had already been built, including the Grand Lodge of Luxor. The first European to come there did not arrive until the Greeks arrived with Alexander II, the son of Philip of Macedonia.
Look, I'm a college graduate. I never heard all this stuff before.
Because they didn't intend to teach you that. They can't tell you that you're inferior and teach you that you taught Europe. The first Europeans to be civilized by the Africans were the Greeks. When you heard of Homer, the first European to have written anything, you couldn't miss that. They said that Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. And that was not until 833 BC. The Africans had already in 255,000 at the Tassili Mountain. They had the Sibyllian period, first, second, and third, the pre-dynastic period, all the way up. The Africans had produced men like this, Imhotep, the multi-genius that designed the step pyramid of Saqqara, the first man to be a physician that even Hippocrates, the so-called father of medicine, is giving him credit and call him the god of medicine. The Greeks changed his name from Imhotep to Aesculapius. There he is. There he is.
Wait a minute. This gets into what you were saying. So wait a minute. You guys are telling me now that black men taught Homer and
As a matter of
went
fact,
to Egypt to school.
As a matter of fact, the Egyptians said Homo is Egyptian, not Greek.
That's right. It's only the Europeans said that. The Westerners now said that he was. But let us go back. Remember that Homer himself said in the Odyssey what? That the gods Zeus and Apollo, Europe's first gods, came from Ethiopia. Go read it, and I didn't write it. He wrote it. Thales, from Thales down to Socrates, and Socrates down to Aristotle, which they call the pre-Socratic philosophers and the post-Socratic philosophers. Each and every one, including Plato, who spent 15 years in Egypt receiving their education.
You're saying Plato was educated in Egypt?
15 years.
See,
Before that, you heard nothing of him. Every one of them.
What you have me believe then also, for part of what you said last night, is that Plato and these guys went back home, and they were big guys. But they were taught in Egypt? Is that what you said?
They came there
for their education.
And they said it. They didn't hide it. It's the modern writers, the modern instructors and professors who are trying to deny it.
Oh my goodness, they took our way of life, messed it up, and claimed that it is theirs. They know the power behind the melanated Madonna child. But they deprive you that have a connection to that. I think we will do a little bit more about this melanated, Black Madonna child. I want us to elaborate more about that so that there are things that we will pick up. But I hope that you got the message and you leave your thoughts and opinion there at the section, Your Majesties, and I'll see you in my next one. Until then, love yourself, love others, stay safe, stay positive, always, Majesties. Bye for now.